Welcome to our vibrant network of governance, risk, compliance, and cybersecurity leaders. We share cutting-edge insights, best practices, and innovative strategies to empower professionals in navigating the dynamic cyber threat landscape. Join Circulo de CISO to ignite resilience and data protection across industries.
Hello, viewers. Welcome back to another edition of Circulo de CISO. And this time, we're going to be talking about offensive security. And to make it more interesting, we're going to be unveiling the dark art of cyber defense. All right. So to have this conversation, I have a good friend of mine, a longtime friend, a professional, Chathura Abeydeera, a director with KPMG, and who's been helping the KPMG clients with their cyber defenses and security strategies. Chathura, welcome to the conversation.
Hi, Sujit. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Likewise. So getting straight into the discussion, right? Offensive security is a conversation which a lot of people have been talking about it in the past, and even right now, it's a topic which some people would like to talk and some people don't want to talk about it. Right. So what I would like to do is, while this topic is a very broad, in-depth conversation, we're going to break this conversation into several episodes. So we would talk about the introduction about offensive security, then we would touch briefly about ethical hacking, then we would also, tell the audience what it means to do penetration testing, and then of recent times, people have been talking about the red team operations, vulnerability assessment, exploit development, and so on and so forth. So we're going to have this conversation in parts so that it's easier for people to comprehend. So Chathura, I would like you to set the context by telling the viewers what is offensive security.
Interesting question, Sujit. So, like they say, offense is the best defense, right? So, you need to have a decent capability to understand your threat landscape, IT threat landscape, if you're focusing on IT and the cyber world. And then from there, try to, rather than just doing, traditional defense around just configuring the firewalls, just IT change management and stuff like that, why don't you try to break in your own defenses, right? And then see whether the attack parties could break your defenses, right? So the idea is you try to break into your own organization before someone else does. Try to break an app, your own app, before someone else does, right? So this way you're actually testing the strength of the controls. So could be preventive controls, detective control, and even response control, depending on how you executing these engagements or how you executing these type of assessment, right? So there are different names to do or label these activities. I'm sure we're gonna go through all of them throughout the conversation, but in a grand scheme of things, you try to break into your own security and assess the strength of the current control.
So Chathura, right? It's a good point you brought out. It is to test the preventive, the detective, and the response controls. How important is it?
I think it's extremely important because, if you look at security is not just technology, right? So we're looking at three pillars: people, process, technology. So offensive security covers all these three dimensions of security and then provide you that holistic view around your detective controls, preventive and response control across all these dimensions. So, you don't need to do offensive security assessment on your environment, but then, if you don't do it, someone else gonna do it and you'll end up in the news for wrong reasons. We don't want to be famous for wrong reasons.
Absolutely. And you're not the first person who have been in this studio with me who have said the same thing, right? So when different people in different contexts make the same statement, I would call it as a serious point which the viewers should take into consideration. What it means is if you don't do it, somebody's going to do it for you free, but the bills are going to come later. Right?
Yeah,
Right?
it's
So
it's
I
it's a
just want
very expensive and costly experience.
Oh yeah, you tell me about it. And those people who have gone through it would never want to go through it again, right? So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
guess the challenge for everybody is to comprehend whether this is a hypothesis we are talking about, or in reality, would it happen at all? Right. So that's a challenge which people have, because uh, when you talk about a fire related risk, they can actually estimate in terms of what the losses could be. But when it comes to cyber, it's very difficult for them to comprehend. So that also makes it very difficult for them to put their foot down and say, yes,
Y-
this is a control we need to take. Yeah, Chathura, you were trying to say something.
Yeah, I think this is where these two worlds need to come together, right? So cyber doesn't. It's not just an IT problem; it's a business sort of a problem. So therefore, like we can bring that risk world, risk lens, and then bring these two people or the two these dimensions together to better understand the organizational risk. So, in my view, cyber risks are not technical risks; they're business risks, right? So when you articulate these business risk or like IT risk or technical risks in a business context, business could understand that. I think majority of the time, as defenders or cybersecurity people, we may fail the business. Not necessarily business doesn't understand it. It's our ability to communicate that risk back to the business, back to the organization to better articulate and understand that business risk. So I think we have a lot to do in term as a cybersecurity professionals in that area around awareness and educating our business stakeholders.
So before we wrap up this episode, would you be able to define the boundaries or the context of doing this offensive security? Does it involve the whole organization, or is just the perimeter which is exposed to the internet?
Yeah, well, it's depending on what is your exact requirement is, right? So if you want to see outside in approach just the technology, then probably the perimeter. But if you want to test that people process technology aspect, right? So, like a red team sort of a nature, then you might want to involve more than IT personnel into the conversation, like, even HR. So then you can understand who we should and shouldn't target, because sometimes, still in this part of the world, people feel that humiliated when you click on a phishing link and stuff like that, right? So, and the way you need to set up the pretext, that's also need to take into consideration. Otherwise, you'll end up in news. So there's this recent, well, like my world is blurred. So I think it's like a year or so ago, someone was doing a red team assessment for an organization, and then they used like a salary slips, and like the organization got a, people in the organization got a like a huge increment or something like that, and
Really?
they went to media and then create a bit of a havoc, right? So from a security point of view, I believe they try to do the right thing, but then we're playing in the social engineering and phishing, we're playing with people's emotions, right? So this is the challenge we have as cybersecurity professional or ethical hackers, because attackers can do whatever they want, right? But we need to work in that ethical and legal frameworks. So it's our activities are limited, right? So then we just need to be mindful of a number of things. So it's good to involve necessary stakeholders beyond IT when you execute in these type of engagements, depending on the scope of the engagement, really.
So thank you, Chathura, for setting the context and setting the platform to continue our discussion. So when we come back for the next episode, where we would be talking about ethical hacking. And I think a lot of people tend to think ethical hacking is everything, but we're going to uncover what is and what it is not. So with that note, Chathura, thank you for your time for this episode. So I would look forward to having you for the next episode.